Redditors, who experienced a glitch in the Matrix. What happened? I'm an artist and work with a scalpel fairly regularly. I'm pretty competent with it and haven't had any other injuries with it. But one time I was cutting out some artwork and spotted some blood on the page, which I thought was pretty strange. I was pretty confused as I didn't recall catching my hand, so checked my hands for injuries and there was blood but no cut. So I washed my hands and checked them again. Nothing. I shrugged it off, thinking it was a little odd, but put it down to maybe leaning on something earlier and not noticing. I carry on cutting out my artwork, and about 10 minutes later, I slip and catch my hand with the blade. Pretty much the same area where the original blood was, but this time there's a visible gash, but no blood at all. It's like my injury happened in reverse. Not the most exciting one, but definitely creeped me out at the time. I had a similar-ish experience while driving, just a couple of months back. So my husband and I are huge joyriders. We drive around a lot in our island province, and we have varied landscapes here, which we get to enjoy while driving. On a particular drive out, we were already heading home from up north, and we decided to pass through a trans-central highway that made the drive shorter, and we didn't have to traverse through the mountains to get back. It was late in the afternoon, around 5:30, when we entered the highway, and it started out pretty normal. My kids were at the back, talking to each other, and my doggie was on my lap. She started barking ferociously for no reason, and I can't seem to make her stop. As we got deeper into the highway, lodged between mountains, she got uncharacteristically quiet, and later on fell asleep. I figured she may have been tired. The kids also fell asleep, so we drove quietly. I realized, at some point, that the drive was taking far longer than it should, and it had gotten incredibly dark. It didn't occur to me then to check my watch, but from what I could tell, we had been on that highway for more than an hour, and we weren't even a quarter of the way through. I'm quite familiar with our highways here, and I have a photographic memory, so I have mental landmarks to know where we are from a certain point to another. I didn't say anything to jinx us, and I didn't want to call out any bad things to happen, so I kept quiet. At the next bend, I realized that we've passed the same row of houses, the same people, and the same lotto outlet 3 times. I unconsciously took note of this during the drive, but every time we come to a bend, I always see the same little town with the same people, laughing and smiling and betting on lotto or sitting in front of their houses. This creeps me the fuck out. I try to casually broach this to my husband only to realize that he's noticed the same thing. It was like we were caught in a loop. At the current one we were at, we deliberately slowed down so we could see what the hell was going on. People went on their day to day, oblivious about us passing through, but the people around the lotto outlet stared at us as if they knew something we didn't. Somehow, after the 5th iteration, if this town, I finally see the church that signaled the end of the Trans-Central Highway. We then crossed into the main highway to take us back to the city. At this point, my kids and dog wake up. I check my watch, and it was only 6 o'clock. The sky outside also wasn't as dark yet. The sun was just setting. I couldn't stop shaking, so we had to stop over at the closest crowded town we could find. Needless to say, we no longer take that highway going to and fro the north of the island. I work night shifts in a warehouse with this dude called Ashley, and usually 3 to 4 others. This one night, I'm sat upstairs in the office on the computer, and I see Ashley come running past down the hallway through the office window. He's quite tall, average build, and has tattoos and piercings. As well, he usually grows his hair out, then gets a buzz cut every 2 to 3 months. I see him sprint past, and instantly notice that he's got a haircut, which he didn't have the previous day. It's definitely him because I see his tattoos. Nothing strange about that. About 3 hours later, when I'm down in the warehouse, he approaches me, and he's got long hair again. The same as he did the previous day. In addition, he has a completely different outfit on as he did earlier. I was so taken aback that it took me a few seconds to respond to what he was saying to me, as I couldn't believe my eyes. I know for a fact I saw him earlier with a shaved head, and it wasn't a dream or anything. The very next night, he walks into the warehouse with a fresh buzz cut and is wearing the same outfit. I've thought about so many possible outcomes as to what a reasonable explanation might be for what I saw, and I can't think of any. I know this isn't the craziest story on earth, but it's what happened to me. While at uni, my friends and I ran out of booze. Hardly any shops were open because it was late on, so the only option was to walk the mile or so to the nearest 24-hour supermarket. Between the supermarket and the dorms we lived in was just row after row of suburban houses which all looked the same. As we were walking down one road, we passed a field with a large campfire and some people riding horses around it. There were people playing musical instruments and general sounds of a good time going on. The horses and fire and the lanterns which were dotted about gave it a very old-fashioned feel. Maybe 5 minutes after passing the field, now walking past houses again, one of my friends commented on how weird and out of place that gathering of people had been. My other friend and I had been thinking exactly the same thing, so curious, we turned around and walked back to find exactly what was going on. There was nothing there. Not just no people or horses. There was no field, just more and more houses, even though we were absolutely certain we were on the right road, as we'd simply turned around. We walked up and down that neighboring roads too. We found nothing. We weren't drunk, though we'd had some drinks, and so I've got absolutely no idea what happened that night. Last fall, I went on a short vacation with some friends while hubby stayed home with the kids. I was last to book, so I got stuck with the entertainment room on an air mattress. The first night there, I was trying to sleep, and I heard this sound of overlapping whispers. It was like 100 people whispering over each other all at once. There's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation called Cause and Effect, where they're stuck in a time loop. Dr. Crusher hears conversations stacked on top of each other from previous loops, and what they played in the episode sounded exactly like what I heard. It really creeped me out, but I tried to tell myself I'm really high, and maybe the speakers are malfunctioning. I eventually forgot about it a few days later. About a month later, hubby and I were hanging out, and he seemed kind of upset. I think he was just having a rough day, but one of the things he was upset about was that he was worried he was schizophrenic. He has a personality disorder, which causes mood issues, but he said he recently began hearing voices. I asked some follow-up questions, and it turns out that one night he heard a bunch of overlapping whispers. Couldn't make out the words, but they were definitely human voices. He just heard it the one time. I had forgotten all about what happened on my trip until he said that. What the crap? We were in different states when I heard the voices. How did he hear the same thing 300 miles away during the same time frame? I knew what day mine happened. He didn't know, aside from it being about a month ago. Part of what made me forget about it so soon was that there was a bunch of AV equipment in the corner it came from. TV, speakers, DVD player, probably a stereo. I just figured maybe it picked up some interference, which still may be true. But for us to both have the same experience, I'm still weirded out. In my 20s, I worked for NASA Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California. You know the place with the gigantic blimp hangars? It was a great job with a rotten commute. It took about an hour to go under 25 miles to work. I'm the workaholic type personality, so I left even earlier than I needed to every day. One of the great perks was a canteen, so you could sit down and have breakfast before things got hectic. One morning, I got up very late. I had to leave about 5:45 to average getting there at 7. It was already 6:45. My alarm clock was old, and it had finally died. Jumped up, got dressed, like, ugh, I look like I slept under a bus, and ran out the door. No breakfast today. At best, I'd be an hour and a half late. Bay Area traffic is known for being bumper to bumper, even though the freeways are 8 lanes across, especially on 101 heading north out of San Jose. The later you leave, the more clogged the freeways are. I had to wait at a metered ramp for 10 minutes just to jump on a cottle road. Great. I turned on my usual AM station, KGO, so that I could get traffic updates. They update traffic every 10 minutes. In about 20 minutes, I had gone maybe 4 miles. Nail-biting panic and worrying for the next 40 minutes until I got up to Logue Avenue exit. It's a cloverleaf with a total pain of a merge. I had to come off the freeway, jump 3 lanes left, and hit a turn lane with a protected arrow. The whole time I was hearing updates on the time and traffic. As I merged into the cloverleaf, I heard a pop of air pressure, almost like when a storm rolls in. Now here's the fun part. I hit the cloverleaf, sighed and braced for the merge. No traffic. Not one car. It's quiet. I noticed the sky was darker and wondered if there was a storm coming in. The turn light went green and I drove the 6 or so blocks to NASA. It's darker still, and the guard barely glanced at me at the gate. I was used to seeing the same man every day and at least saying hello. This guy looked wrong. If you pulled someone out of 1950 and plunked him down in a mall, they'd grab your attention, without knowing why. It hit me so hard that I watched him in my rearview mirror as long as I could. He never moved or went back in the little guard shack. As I pulled into the parking lot, my car radio went silent and everything shifted. Have you ever been blindfolded and spun around and gotten very dizzy? It's that feeling. Everything was subtly different. The lot was empty. I sat there for a minute, trying to figure out if I had lost my mind. My car radio suddenly blasted back on, and I hear the KGO announcer say, "Good morning, Bay Area. It's 6:29, and traffic is still light. We'll have updates in 1 minute, but first, here's our weather outlook." I checked every station. It was the same. My watch said 8:29. Where did the time go? And did I really want to find out? Made me wonder what the hell NASA Ames was working on. Since I was young, and still on occasion today, I very rarely have these dreams that are way too real. It's hard to explain, but these dreams are very short. The longest lasted about a minute. These dreams are always about me doing something very mundane, but uniquely identifiable. The best example I can give is one dream I had when I was 13. In the dream, I was sitting at a computer desk that I had never seen before, visiting a website that didn't exist. I tried to look it up after I woke up. And I was in a house I had never seen before. I drew a layout of what I could see in the house when I woke up, as I always write down these odd, hyper-realistic dreams. Because these odd dreams almost always actually happen in the future. Just last year, I moved into the apartment in my dream. The website was just created a couple of years ago, and I am a part of it because it was an upgrade to a website I joined when I was 20-ish. And of course, I picked out the same desk and computer without realizing what I had done until that moment I saw in the dream played out in reality, and prompted me to go back and look at my old dream journal. This is not the first time this has happened. I met my aunt's second cat in a dream years before she got it, and she only got it because her first cat passed away. One of my closest friends I met in a dream years before I actually met him in real life. But I've never seen anything important or of any relevance, just tiny little clips of the most mundane things that have no value until it actually happens.